Madam Speaker, the Governor of Guam.
Governor?
I-minute 10 na legislature ng Guam is called to order. Please remain standing for the presentation of colors.
Color guard, forward, march.
Mark time. Buck. Left wheel. Buck. Left. Right. Left. Mark time. Buck. Detail. Hold.
I would like to call upon Cantate to sing the national anthem and the Guam hymn. to ask Senator Tina Rose Munya Barnes if she could lead us in the recitation of the Inifresi.
Imustaculum gignasoku, imustaculum gicorazonhu, zenimus figu nanusanahu, hu fresin maisatu, baraiputehi, zenu defendi, hi nengi, i katura, i lenguai, i airi, hi hanam, zenitano samoro. Nirin shaku diretsu ginanatsu stata, Esti hu fitma gihilu I Biblia, jani benderahu I bendera wahan.
Order. Arm. Forward. March.
Please remain standing as I call upon the Most Reverend Anthony S. Aparon, Archbishop of Agana, Guam, to deliver the invocation.
Elohim del Espíritu Santo. Amen. Todo na sinin na Diyos, o na matungo mi na lagmo gitoro na Sean. Diyos ni nasin ya zaminetgut, tinemtum zantininas, kininhago mo des papat sa imali na toridad, ilai siya manafanhuhuzung zani ineska mamamta. Almighty God, you have revealed your glory to all nations, God of power and might, wisdom and justice. Through you, authority is rightly administered, laws are enacted, and judgment is decreed. Azuda zani spiritumo, mangonsuelo zaminatat nga, y honorablias Eddie Baza Calvo, magalahin guahan, ni para fanay cuenta, put pimed biay genuebo na administrasyon niya, kimansud dadano, zan mamailin officialis este natano po di administrasyon niya. Assist with your spirit of counsel and fortitude the Honorable Eddie Baza Calvo, Governor of Guam, who is to give for the first time in his new administration an account to the citizens and elected officials concerning his administration. Sede na isumaunaw niya gi administrasyon igwinhanes tinatano umakundusi gitininas sa usen maulik para manauto ni hagihilului. Grant that his participation in the administration of the resources of our land may be conducted in righteousness and be eminently useful to your people over whom it presides. Sede inina ni ziniusan at tinemtomo na udirihi itsetso niya como magalay para ireglamento sa magabenan mami. Let the light of your wisdom direct his work as governor for our rule and our government. Walara zo espia para o mantieni ipas, utsonig mona para iminagov todos ciudadano zo continuat sumuliham ni bendisyon linibre pinarejos antininas. May he seek to preserve peace, promote national happiness, and continue to bring the blessings of liberty, equality, and fairness. In Tazazuzati imagala in Mamias Eddie Baza Calvo, ni maintrega para guarde politica na minaulig mami. We pray for our governor, Eddie Baza Calvo, who is entrusted to guard our political well-being. O alares o sinya ginini medgo na proteksyon mo at espacio obligasyon mami dan honesto, sincero, and capacidad. May he be enabled by your powerful protection to discharge his duties with honesty, integrity, and ability. Loco na kamembena gi abundansya na zineasemo, tori man si dadanon estinatano, na infambendecision gitiningo, zan infanyantos gimaos ginis santas na mandamentomo. We likewise commend to you your abundant mercy, all the citizens of this land, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your holy law. Walara za infamaprotehe gidinanya zan adzo na paz nitisine tano manay, that después de ingesa bendiciones tinalinala, infamadmiti giadzo itahiniko. in tata zazoreste ginenhago ni saina dan Zeus para tori tempo dan siempre. May we be preserved in union and that peace which the world cannot give, and after enjoying the blessings of this life, be admitted to those which are eternal. We pray to you who are Lord and God forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Please be seated. For the delivery of the State of the Island Address, I call upon the Honorable Edward J.B. Calvo, Magalahin, Guahan.
Thank you and good evening. 6%. 6%. That's where I'd like to see unemployment numbers by the end of this year. 4.5%. That's where I'd like to see unemployment numbers by the end of my term. Now, we haven't seen those numbers that low since 1993. And getting them back there is going to take a lot of hard work. Madam Speaker, Chief Justice Carbolito, our Congresswoman Berdalio, Archbishop Operon, to all our senators and our mayors and distinguished guests, and most importantly you, my fellow Guamanians. I'm honored to stand here before you and grateful that you could join me here tonight. Now, this speech reflects my agenda for the next 4 years. It's about jobs. Jobs, jobs. It's about building a future for our children and their children and giving them a proper foundation, a solid foundation in which they can enjoy a prosperous life. Now, 4 years goes by pretty quickly, and that's all the time that Ray and I have as a team to start and finish this work. I stood in these steps about 4 years ago as your newly elected governor, and we faced a myriad of challenges. The biggest were finances and the ramifications of a couple of decades of instability. Now today, we have the ambulances that our island needs, our public school students have buses, and we have more police officers on the streets with Cape Police Reserves and Cape volunteers working with them. GMH has an urgent care clinic and a larger emergency room. And we are modernizing the GMH maternity ward. The northern and the southern public health centers are able to help more people with extended hours. And healthcare is on the rise for our people and our veterans. Now, investors are bringing business and more jobs to Guam. All fire stations now have a fire truck. That's the way it should be. Tax refunds are timely. And before, people were resigned for waiting for years. Now the people are getting their money back. Last week, 500 taxpayers received about $1.8 million in tax refund checks. That's the way it should be. Today, we start a new day. Now we're going to push the bar even higher. We're going to build the standard and set a new standard for our children. And that's how you build a stronger future. In March of 2014, Guam had a unemployment rate of 7.4%, an improvement over the previous rate of 8.4% in December of 2013. Now, according to the Economic Outlook for fiscal year 2016, Guam will see more businesses, investors, and opportunities for growth. Now, Guam has two engines powering our economy: tourism and the military. Now, in the next few years, Guam will see public utilities and infrastructure improvements, and these will provide high-octane fuel for our engines. Tourist arrivals have been at record-breaking numbers in the recent years, and for arrivals for 2014, they totaled 1,342,000, which is about 8,000 more visitors than we received in 2013. Now that's 3 years of steady growth. And while the number of Japan visitors has been declining recently, revenue from Japan remained nearly unchanged due to GVB's work to raise quality rates and yield. Now Japan is still our number one market, but growth from all other major markets, including Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, and China, are contributing to maintaining high and increased tourist arrival numbers. Now, Guam is expanding its tourist market, and we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. Now, tourism sales and revenues were at $1.47 billion. Now, we're working to increase that to $2.64 billion in the next several years. Jeju Air recently launched its new twice-weekly nonstop flights between Busan, South Korea, and Guam. And from now until the second week of March, Guam will welcome nearly 3,000 visitors from 5 different cities in China through Dynamic Airways. Now, that Asian airline is introducing 15 charter flights from those cities, and these Chinese cities for the 2015 Chinese Lunar New Year. Also, to ensure this growth continues into the next decade, I signed into a law a measure that would help investors in tourism increase capacity of their hotels. Thank you so much, Senators. Ken Corporation recently announced plans to build a new hotel with 348 rooms. Now, construction of that hotel will be about $120 million. It's scheduled to start this year with a completion date of 2018. Now, there is no doubt that this investment will also provide hundreds of jobs for our people. Now, let's talk about diversification tourism. Coming to Guam is not just about sightseeing. There's a new market emerging, sports tourism. More people are coming to Guam to run, to bike, and swim in our 10Ks, our marathons, our triathlons, and other races. In golf, tennis, off-road racing, baseball, soccer, rugby. My wife knows rugby. She plays it and coaches it. These are all reasons for our visitors to flock to our tropical island paradise. Now, the Coco Half Marathon and the Ekiden Relay in 2014 welcomed runners from Guam, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Papua New Guinea, Australia, and Russia, among many others. Now, millions in tourism dollars were generated. International media covering these events meant increased exposure for Guam. And in fact, in April, the 3rd Guam International Marathon is expected to draw about 2,000 off-island runners to experience this signature event. The cover of United Airlines magazine, The Hemisphere, features an article, 3 Perfect Days on Guam. Now, it's a 9-page cover story featured in their in-flight magazine's February 2015 edition. There's going to be an estimated 11 million travelers in United that will be seeing pictures of people kayaking, read about our hiking adventures, our tax-free shopping, and relaxing with a drink and some food at the beach bar and grill. And the article asks this question: is Guam the next Pacific hotspot for tourists? And you know my answer. Folks, I don't even been watching television. But if you are shoveling snow out of a driveway in the East Coast, or I just came from beautiful Sapporo, Japan, I know I'd say yes, definitely. Now, with the help of our private partners, Guam is building a reputation as a safe and family-friendly destination. That reputation is opening the door to other forms of tourism. Education tourism is a budding industry, and I acknowledge also our president of our university, Robert Underwood, and also Mary Okada at the University of Guam, because Guam Visitors Bureau is working with them in educational exchange programs. The University of Guam's English Language Institute and English Adventure programs bring more than 4,000 visiting students to Guam for up to a full semester. Now, students learn about our culture, and participate in popular local sports. Now, majority of the students come from Japan and Korea, but we're also seeing a few of those students from Russia. Now, Leo Palace Resort has taken the lead on this, but also with other local hotels that are hosting these young men and women. Now, like many sporting events, education tourism program is not just, it doesn't only increase our tourism numbers. They also promote our island's attractiveness and our culture of hospitality. Now the other piston. I see our men and women in uniform. Soon, we'll see the official record of decision for the military buildup. Many eyes are focused on Guam, the eyes of investors. And they're focused because Guam because of the United States' commitment to its allies in the Asia-Pacific region. Now, Guam has about 6,000 active military personnel and about 7,000 military dependents. Those numbers are going to grow over the next few years, and by another 6,000 when the Marines come to Guam. And in addition, we're seeing growth in the Army, Navy, and Air Force presence, such as more than the 200 soldiers that are here with the THAAD battery, and about 200 sailors and their families who will be soon on Guam with the new submarine USS Topeka. Now, this military buildup is projected to generate $8.7 billion in economic contributions in these next 10 years. Now, we have already seen millions of dollars in infrastructure improvements at the Navy Wharf. And our bridges and primary roads have seen major improvements as well. In the last few years, we've cut the ribbon on dozens of road projects. Just 2 years ago, driving down Marine Corps Drive in Agana was pretty rough. Now that's one of the smoothest stretches of road in our island. Now, recently completed and ongoing road repairs and construction total about $160 million in investments. And we're also looking for another $126 million in road improvements in the next few years. We're also looking at millions of dollars in improvements with both the Guam Water Works Authority and the Guam Power Authority. The Water Agency is looking at about a $400 million investment into its infrastructure to meet federal requirements. And GPA is investing up to $850 million to build alternate energy sources, including solar and wind energy, in addition to LNG generators. It's also creating a new niche in the business sector. Guam is seeing private businesses increase our own island's solar power capacity, helping us to reduce our reliance on fuel that is shipped to Guam and also reduce our carbon footprint. Now, my man here, Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio, and General Manager Joanne Brown just announced the port's acquisition of an X-ray machine. It's part of the port's overall security enhancement program. Now, that $1 million project is just one of the port's several dozen modernization and security enhancement projects totaling more than $60 million. Now, the Guam Airport Authority has completed $82 million in modernization, and that's including renovation work and improvements to accommodate new shops and boutiques. But moving forward, they're anticipating another $166 million in additional capital improvement projects over the next 4 years. The work has just begun. These investments are growing our economy and providing more jobs for Guamanians. Now, Guam has seen an increase in private sector jobs, particularly in construction, transportation, retail, and service industries. And in all, the private sector grew by nearly 1,000 jobs from 46,430 in September 2010 to 47,030 in September 2014. And there are more jobs ahead. The Guam Regional Medical City, Dusit Tani, and retailers like Forever 21 are hiring. Now, the Guam Regional Medical City will eventually employ about 700 people. Now, under the terms of the QC that I signed, 75% of all employees must be citizens or permanent resident aliens. Now, that employee number does not include housekeeping and other ancillary services. Now, the Dusit Tani recently held a job fair to fill 350 positions. And Forever 21 is looking for up to 70 people. Now, just those projects alone, that's 1,000 jobs more available to Guamanians in these next months. Now, since becoming your governor, I've said that the working middle class in our community, the backbone of our economy, must be able to afford homes. And while those in the middle class, particularly those who earn too much to receive welfare, but can't quite make enough to make some tough choices, and whether it's in payday, they have to decide between buying school supplies or paying for utilities. People were worried that the military buildup would price the middle class wage earner out of apartments and home ownership. Now, I told you that our administration wouldn't let that happen, and I'm still committed to that promise. There have been more than 5,600 civilian construction projects totaling $1.4 billion in the last 4 years. And of that, about $250 million were for apartments and homes. And when I first took office, the goal for my administration was to build 3,000 affordable homes by 2017. Well, today, we are closer by 1,967 to reaching that goal. The Guam Housing Corporation's first-time homeowner assistance program provided 283 new homeowners with about $2.1 million in down payment assistance and closing cost funding. Now, this doesn't include homeowners who qualified for traditional financing, which totals about $43 million in mortgage loans at various financial institutions. And when people buy homes, they buy furniture, appliances, and they pay utility bills. That also further stimulate our economy. I encourage the leadership of the 33rd Guam Legislature to fund this program annually and to support the passage of various funding sources outlined in the Housing Trust Fund. By the way, this is unique in the nation. There is no other community in the nation that has this. This will help GovGuam fund and manage local housing programs and projects. Now, all of these improvements mean nothing when we see fellow Guamanians and their children in need of a helping hand. Last year, we increased the number of emergency housing for homeless people and families. The Guma San Jose Homeless Expansion Program, we had additional 5 single homes, family homes, which were completed. And those homes are right now helping families. Now, another 5 homes from Lauder Gardens that were formerly used as rental units were upgraded and are designated as homeless shelters by the Guam Housing Corporation. Now, we're continuing to look at additional abandoned housing within the government's inventory that can be renovated. And our plan to construct basic homes to provide temporary shelter for homeless families is moving forward. Now, I want to reiterate that this is not a handout. Life sometimes deals tough blows, and all we need is to give them a hand to lift them up so that they can stand on their own 2 feet. And that's why we're here. We're here to help Guamanians who want to take advantage of the opportunity to get their families in a safe home. Now, we've tied the housing to other types of assistance. Families placed in emergency shelters are connected with the Department of Public Health and Social Services, the Department of Labor, and other agencies that provide services that family might need. And we're making sure that they have food, a roof over their head, and either a job or job training so that they can get a job. Now, one family at one point needed help after that house that they were renting was flooded by a storm. And they sought help and were able to move into temporary housing. It was the Guam Housing Corporation employees who realized that they could help this family and do more. And today, they are the proud homeowners of a brand new home. And I'd like to offer my congratulations to John Howard and Iumi Mori. So give them a hand, please. Now let me tell you about someone around this time last year who was forced to live in a bus shelter because of a domestic issue. She said that she felt safer there than where she used to live. And a staffer for the lieutenant governor saw her and asked if she needed help. And he called the Guam Housing Corporation and asked them to help her. Well, Mrs. Dunca moved into one of those emergency shelters. And Guam Housing and the Department of Public Health and Social Services all got together to help her. All she needed was the listening ear of someone who cares and a helping hand. And she got both. Annie Dunca is now self-sufficient and is paying rent for her Ed.D. home. And I'm so proud of Annie. So please, I don't know if Annie's here, but if she is, please stand. Thank you. Keep on going for the Guamanian dream. Now, it isn't only adults who find themselves in tough situations. There are also so many children who have been left without a home and no one to care for them. It's not because they did anything wrong. It's because the adults in their lives weren't doing what's right. And whether it was physical abuse, neglect, or placing their children in dangerous situations because of a drug addiction or criminal behavior, these adults now are either imprisoned or hospitalized, and their children are left alone. Now, we have about 40 families who have hope in their hearts and their homes to these little ones. But with over 300 foster children, not every child is able to get a foster family. These homeless foster children are distributed between nonprofits and agencies like the Department of Youth Affairs. And that's why my beautiful wife, First Lady Christine Calvo, pushed so hard to build the Regalo House. It's a temporary home. And it's a temporary home. But it's important so these children would know that there are people in this world who care for them and who are willing to do what is right. Now, it took a lot of patience and prayer. And there were tears as we waited through the arguments and the naysayer who hid, unfortunately, behind politics. But the good Lord's grace, we're almost at the finish line. The Chamorro Land Trust has identified property in Barrigada Heights. And pending the approval of the legislature, and I know you'll do it, we're planning to break ground on the Regalo House this year. As I stated earlier, there's a lot of hard work ahead of us. And I asked the leadership of this body to roll up their sleeves with me. And I know once we get off the suits, it's easier to roll up the sleeves, especially with an Island Day shirt. Many in our community face challenges. And whether it's because a lack of a home to keep clothes and to shower, or a lack of transportation, or a lack of information to get all things that they need to get back on their feet. But like Annie, they needed a helping hand. And we need to support them on the road to financial stability. And the only way to do this is to help them get a job. And AHRD workers with other agencies to assist individuals and families, they connect people with different programs to prepare them for a job, including job training, resume writing, interview techniques, and for those who need it, a high school diploma. Now, hundreds more will soon have easier access to that help. AHRD is creating satellite job centers throughout the island, and it's going to begin with a northern job center. Now, AHRD and the Department of Labor share a common goal of helping people find jobs. They want to match people to fulfilling jobs and provide learning opportunities and offer a path to a higher salary. Now, perhaps in one of those jobs, they'll learn skills that they can use to build their own businesses and become their own bosses. Programs like the University of Guam Small Business Development Center have assisted 109 entrepreneurs to start, expand, or buy a business who invested in more than $14.4 million in loans and equity injection from 2011 to 2014. Now, the entrepreneurs, in turn, created 278 jobs and retained 174 jobs for their fellow Guamanians. Now, if we truly believe that education is the key to success, then we need to ensure that the next generations of Guamanians receive the education that they need to become successful. Guam's public schools have a new curriculum standard that for the first time marries the skills that are needed in the workforce to what students are learning in the classroom. This is the first full year of the Common Core curriculum that is in place and that was adopted by the Education Board in 2012. Now, this new curriculum reflects a global shift in understanding that our children will be competing against the best of the world for jobs. Now, many of those jobs will be in science, technology, engineering, and math fields. And by the way, I want to acknowledge John Fernandez. Can you give him a hand? And that's why I was excited to learn that the STEM programs at the schools are flourishing. Not only are children studying robotics and engineering, but they're also participating in green engineering. Now at George Washington High School, and I just passed by their garden just the other day, students are testing the pH level of soils to determine what plants grow best in the soil at that Mangilao school. They planted tomatoes and other produce. And whether they eat what they grow or they sell it at the soon-to-be-open farmers market, what they are learning is important to the future of our island. Now, if we want to decrease our reliance on foods shipped to Guam and have healthy, fresh, locally grown fruits and vegetables at our dinner tables, then we need to encourage these programs that can boost sustainability and agriculture in our island. We also need to support the educational needs of our men and women in uniform. Guam has a large population of soldiers and airmen in the National Guard. And together with the administration and, of course, the National Guard and the Guam Community College, we created a program that teached our soldiers and airmen the skills to secure a well-paying civilian job, the Keep Your Guard Up program, which, by the way, is another one of those that is the only program of its kind in the United States. It had helped about 200 guardsmen. Other commands and colleges from the U.S. mainland are now looking to Guam to learn more about this program, about how it was created, about how it worked in its first year, and how we help veterans to learn valuable, employable skills. Now, many of you know that I like to read history books. Kind of a boring thing, but I do like reading history books. But I think it's important to know about our history. Because when you know where you come from and you understand the lessons of the past, then they become landmarks as we chart our way to a better future for our island and our people. Now, Hagåtña has been the heart of our island for centuries. It reflects the different eras of Guam and the efforts to rebuild as we move forward after Spanish colonialism, after the war between America and Japan, and into which our people were swept into in a war that we didn't know anything about, and our efforts to determine also now our political future. Now, we are rebuilding this historic city once again as we move to have a better understanding of our place in this world and who we are as a people. And I asked, when I wrote a letter and I called up Speaker Juan Pat, I told her it was important for me to speak here because this will likely be the last State of the Island address given in this building. And if all goes according to plan, I look forward to working with you in Department of Public Works. That old Guam Congress building will be renovated this year. And by... And I fully anticipate apprising Guamanians on the state of the territory from the hallowed halls of that historical building. So I'll see you there next year, huh? Now, as we prepare for the Festival of the Pacific Arts, or FestPacs next year, we're going to open Hagatnya to them. A revamped Paseo Park will be the center of the festival, in which we anticipate will host about 2,500 artisans, along with about an estimated 10,000 supporters from more than 27 countries in the Pacific region. So as our guests tour Hagatnya, they'll see that magnificent cathedral, the new Guam Museum at Skinner Plaza, and in the corner between them, the site of the old Plaza de España, restored to becoming a glowing reminder of those Sunday afternoons when musicians played at the courtyard of the Palacio. Or Palacio. Okay. While families strolled and enjoyed the wonderful tropical evenings. Festival participants also will be able to walk to the to be completed Fishermen's Co-op fishing platform and see the site where our fishermen will help grow this fishing industry of ours, while also teaching the next generation of this important tradition. Now, we must embrace technology to move our government into the 21st century. Tommy, we're moving, buddy. We're moving. Guamanians today can register their vehicles, pay taxes, and even file tax returns online. Now, I've directed line agencies to make more government service available to Guamanians. We're going to start with our libraries. I've directed the Chamorro Affairs Director to increase efforts to turn our public library system into centers of education and technology. Now, the Guam Public Library Extension Project will add a new children's library and a cyber cafe for parents and caregivers to that Hagatnya library. And next, they'll be partnering with AmeriCorps and nonprofit organizations and corporate sponsors to open our village libraries. And we're updating and adding that to our computer inventory. But such a library has to be so much more. Our goal is to help teach students how to use the computer and to do academic research, and how to process and critically assess the barrage of information that is right now flowing through the internet. Now, when a student or other library patron checks out a book, it may be an e-book that they can check out online. Now, the library will also host community discussions on the dangers of sexting or cyberbullying. And also, public school students and parents can learn more about the various Common Core curriculum apps that are available to help children and parents. And at happy hour, I don't know who coined that phrase, but at happy hour, students and parents can speak with a technology aide about the different educational, literacy, and life apps available for Apple and Android devices. Now, this reimagined library system will ensure that our children have a safe place to study and learn outside of school, a place where they are connected to the internet and the world, and where they can learn how to harness the flow of information for their children. Now, the Office of Technology is working on other apps to improve Guamanians' interaction with their government and community. And I have one of these apps on my phone. Now, this will allow me to view land-related data. And in later phases of this app, you'll be able to download documents such as property titles and order a certified copy of the same. And we have other apps coming. In the next several weeks, a traffic app will become available and will show traffic routes and any congestion at various times of the day. Now, the Office of Technology will ensure that future iterations of this app include information about accidents, about traffic light outages, and road construction. Now, another of these apps that you'll see will help plug educational outreach on the question of our political status, ensuring that eligible voters have the information that they need to make an informed decision that is so critical to our people. The Office of Decolonization has an additional $120,000 in the current fiscal year to help fund this education outreach. And also, we continue to wait for the Department of Interior to make good on the funding promised to us. I've written a letter to Assistant Secretary for Insular Affairs, Esther Kiana, asking her for that help. And at the very least, to match the money that we're putting on the education program. Now, having said that, the law requires us to register 70% of eligible voters for this plebiscite to occur. Now, GC only has 7,192 registered voters in the decolonization registry, and that falls far short of the necessary voter numbers. There are some questions in the language of the law that we need to settle in order to give us a clear understanding of the actions that we need to pursue. Now, this may require us to go to the Attorney General, and I want to acknowledge our Attorney General, Liz Barrett Anderson. And then we may need to look to work with her or the courts for this interpretation. Now, there are some questions of the language of the law that we need to settle in order to give us a clearer understanding of the actions that we need to pursue. I said that already. By the way, I'll say this again. We need to do it now. Now. Ladies and gentlemen, I've read a lot of history books, and I've read civics books since I was an elementary student. Any status is better than the status of unincorporated territory. Whether it's statehood, free association, or independence, I believe that a change will put us in control of our own destiny. Our youth of today shows that we can't be afraid to move forward, to take that leap of faith. I don't know if Mayor McDonald is here, but I got a letter and I got some information on Kiandra Mcdonald. And this is a daughter of Chris and Stacy Flores, who is, she's a junior at Squaxin High School in Washington State. Now, in her freshman year, just 2 weeks after she started in her new school, and being the only Guamanian student, she made a bid for the vice presidency of her freshman class council. Now, as part of her campaign, she talked about Guam and the beauty of our island, and its culture and its diversity. And she became known, since she was the only one there, as the Guam girl. Now, incidentally, she won that election. She won that election. And today, she is the president of the school's diversity club. Her perseverance and her determination changed the mindset of that school community. She took a leap of faith, trusting that her cause was just and fair, and she committed to that uphill battle. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot be afraid to push an agenda that is based on what is just and what is fair. And we are a small island, but history has shown us that we are significant. And whether we come from a large or small community, it behooves us to do what is right, no matter how big that Goliath is. For over a century, the federal government has dictated on how we do business, on how we are able to care for our people. And I've heard the naysayers and the critics. You know, if it wasn't for the federal government pumping money into our economy, then we'd be still living in thatched huts. And federal officials have recently stated, and it was in the headlines, in court, that the government of Guam is too incompetent to be entrusted with the welfare of the people. That if it wasn't for the federal government taking over our agencies and running them for us, things would be running at a higher cost with less efficiency. Now, it's ironic that they praise the fiscal management capabilities of a federal government that has, over the last 6 years, been running at an average deficit of over $1 billion per year, and that the current national debt is over $18 trillion. On Guam, the federal government forces us to give and sign blank checks and give carte blanche to receivers that build a solid waste system that is operating at a deficit and that is over budget by tens and tens of millions of dollars, and that is paying exorbitant fees to consultants and employees, and that is not self-sustaining, but is instead draining our general fund of over $12 million per year. Now, am I missing something? Aren't these the very same reasons that we were told that the federal government needed to take our solid waste system to begin with? When was the last time you heard anyone say that the federal government was the epitome of fiscal prudence? The federal courts have the luxury of focusing on one capital project at a time: a landfill, a mental health facility, a prison, water, wastewater, without any consideration for other government expenses, including education, public safety, or island infrastructure, or the costs of other federally imposed mandates, such as the Compact Impact. They can force us to spend more than we have available to cover all other necessary expenses of government. Not because they're right, but because they can. Make no mistake about it. This is the colonialism of the 21st century. It is the forced will of the federal government on our people through unfunded mandates enforced by federal courts. I don't know if you guys watch the History Channel. I love that. The History Channel recently showed a 3-part miniseries, The Sons of Liberty, depicting how the seeds of the American Revolution were sown. By the way, I'm advocate of statehood. I'm not advocating for a revolution, but I read history. I want to remind us all, federal and local alike, that the criticisms and aspersions being cast at the people of Guam as ungrateful money grubbers who lack the ability to govern themselves. Watch that television show. It's always rejoinder of those claimed to be more enlightened in citizenry, who are only exerting their natural paternalistic oversight to take care of those that are unable to take care of themselves. Yet it was this rejection of that same characterizations and the recognition of the right to participate in the creation of the laws of their government that the founding fathers established the foundation of the greatest democracy in the history of the world. Does GovGuam face some culpability in letting some of its institutions and facilities deteriorate? Of course it does. Sometimes primarily because of political gridlock. But does that make us unique? The most recent Congress was so gridlocked that it passed fewer laws than any other in the time of modern history. Last year was the first time Congress passed a full-fledged budget since 2009. That's why we need our congressmen to have a vote. Should get us Guamanians there to make some tough decisions. But we can't vote. So who gets to step in and take over the federal government and impose a receivership on it when it's not living up to its mandates? No one. And yet all the standards that are applied to Guam, the federal government does not appear to be any, as far as I'm concerned, to be any less deserving of receivership. My fellow Guamanians, just because our local government failed in the past to provide services doesn't mean that we can't question the decisions that are being made for us now. They are decisions being made for us. It doesn't mean our concerns shouldn't be heard. It doesn't mean that we can't keep pointing out to the federal government and the courts the cost of other necessary projects. I think, if anything, this administration's track record of providing services, fulfilling promises, even those made by our predecessors, should at least allow us a seat at the table. And I'm not talking the servants' table. Now, we should be able to come together as equals to discuss issues that impact the lives of the people that we all supposed to be serving. But to be denied the even most basic right of having legal representation in a court proceeding, an issue that we've appealed that is being heard by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals this week, it only reminds us that this government, and I as your governor, I have the responsibility to the people of Guam to make sure that even federal edicts and mandates are not left unchecked, unchallenged, or unquestioned. Now, having said that, I will be reintroducing a bill originally submitted to the legislature last year. That bill will authorize the administration to hire lawyers, and possibly through the Attorney General's office, to represent Guam in a possible suit against the federal government and hold them responsible for the dumping of toxic waste and other contaminated material into the ORDOT dump for years. I'm asking your help. Yes, ORDOT dump was a problem, and this administration acknowledges that the closure of that toxic site is necessary. But the federal government also should acknowledge in its part in the creation of the dump and should be held accountable for it. The people of Guam didn't start that mess in ORDOT, so we shouldn't be expected to bear the full burden of its closure. I'm asking that this new legislature consider the bill carefully. Consider that we have a new Attorney General who has agreed to work with us to forge a path for our people in a way that incorporates best practices with what is best for Guam. And I'm also grateful that the legislature is of the same mind and is pushing the federal government to consider outside-the-box solutions to help address on how our people have been shortchanged. So I want to give you all a hand. I want to thank you for your comment questions. My friends and neighbors, my family, my people of Guam, I hope you know and understand that we as a single team with a single voice have the power to do what is right for our people today and for future generations of Guamanians. The single focus will be aimed not just at the dump issue, but also on other federal policies that restrict our economy and impede on our efforts to become a more self-sustaining people. Policies like the Jones Act weren't meant to have a negative impact on our economy, but it has. And despite many requests for this to be repealed, the federal government hesitates. And I have agreement with Senator McCain on that. And in its hesitation, our people are made to pay for higher costs for goods that have to be shipped in a jagged line from Asia to the West Coast, from the West Coast to Hawaii to Guam and the Micronesia region. Now, I'm going to marshal our friends and supporters to help us address this cause. And I'm meeting with federal officials in a trip that I'll be taking to Washington, D.C. in the next few days. Now, among the things I'll be discussing is this decades-old act that has increased not only the cost of doing business on Guam, but the cost of everything from rice to furniture. And by the way, it's also created a monopoly. President Obama, during his State of the Union address just last month, said that he'd like to ease laws and policies that hinder the growth of this nation's economy. And I believe that this may be the opportune moment for us to free our island and our region from this policy. And I said earlier, we're in the start of the tax season, folks. And as of last week, about 15,000 tax returns were filed. And if that trend holds true, we're going to pay out about $130 million in tax refunds. Now, EITC would make out about 40% of that amount. 40%. EIT is something that every qualifying U.S. taxpayer can receive. But the difference is that the California and New York state governments, and all states, they don't pay that out of their state coffers. The federal government pays it. On Guam, we pay it out of our general fund. Now, one mandate that has been the topic of disagreement for decades is compact impact reimbursement. Now, for several years, we received $16 million a year for providing health, education, safety services to migrants from the freely associated states. Now, in fiscal 2015, that amount decreased to $14 million, and it remains the same for fiscal year 2016. Now, let me make it clear. This debate is with the federal government, which forged an agreement with the FAS governments without any input from us or other states or territories that host our Micronesian brothers and sisters. The disagreement on compact impact costs is based on the federal government's inability to live up to its promise to help us provide services to the increased population. Last year alone, we calculated $144 million for that year that is owed to us. That's 10 times what we're actually receiving. Now, the federal government says the disparity in numbers is due to a faulty formula. But yet, despite repeated requests, they have yet to provide a formula that they would accept. And I don't know if discussion is something that we can continue to do in this front. We need to be more aggressive. We need to push the federal government to recognize that their failure impacts the lives of everyone here on Guam. And if necessary, and if legally sound, we'll be working with our Attorney General to take this matter to court, to force the hand that signed this policy to live up to its side of the agreement. Just this afternoon, I issued an executive order amending an earlier executive order establishing the Guam First Advisory Commission to expand the Commission's authority to advise me on federal issues. And I will send a letter to convene the Commission on March. I'm asking the Commission to establish separate committees or task force to initially deal with the Guam buildup and with the compact impact. Now, it was, same month, February 1870, that the Congress ratified the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, 5 years after the American Civil War, guaranteeing the right of citizens to vote, regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. 145 years later, we're still waiting for the right to vote. On February 1917, my great-grandfather, Tomas Anderson Calvo, petitioned to the federal government to treat the people of Guam as equals. And let me quote my great-grandfather. "It is high time that there be granted to the people respectful, loyal, and devoted to the great American nation the same rights that have been granted to the different states, territories, and possessions. And we censure no one, although we will be the last to be remembered and granted our rights. Our ideals are realized by the giving of that which by right should be granted. And that is to say, that the defining status of the Chamorro people, in a word, that we may know whether we are to be members of the American people or their servitors. Now, he delivered that speech at the opening of the first Guam Congress in February 2017. It's almost 100 years later, and we're still left at the mercy of unilaterally imposed policies placed on the backs of our people. And my grandfather ended his speech with, "I have spoken." Now remember, this is after 200 years of colonialism with the Spaniards. "I have spoken." These three words indicated not only the end of the speech, but they also indicated liberation. And they reflected the level of energy, passion, and commitment that he gave to those three simple words that he spoke. Make no mistake, this advisory commission has a tough task ahead of it, helping to ensure that we as a people are able to participate in the formulation of the laws and policies that will bind us. That will not be easy. And it first requires that we agree on a single focus. This is a meeting of the heart and of the mind, and it is a metamorphosis of our political will. And it's going to be an uphill battle. But like the Howards, like Mrs. Dunca, like our young Kiandra, we can't be afraid to pick up the gauntlet and the sword and face this battle. We can't walk away. For to do so would be an injustice, a disservice to our people, and to those who came before us, and to our children and their children. If we don't stand up for what is right, what do we say to the children who ask why their fathers and mothers paid the ultimate sacrifice while serving our beloved nation and our beloved flag? It's going to mean some tough decisions. And some of those decisions may not be politically correct. But we can't be swayed. We must come together in this fight for what is true and what is right. We must come together as elected leaders. We must rise as people and as Guamanians, rooted in our community and in a shared belief that we deserve to be treated equally with respect and dignity. And in the words of a man who a century ago, who dared to believe in the Guamanian dream, I have spoken. Thank you, and God bless you.
You've spoken.
Thank you.
I would like to ask, of course, Reverend Ray Bosse of the Guam Ministerial Association to deliver the benediction.
prayer, please. Our gracious Father and our God, I can't help but thank you for setting up a man to stand in the hour of accomplishment, to stand in a time such as this, to lead Guam toward its tremendous growth. That through his leadership, through his visions, programs, and actions, Guam had experienced tremendous growth that made it a better place. I pray that in the coming years of his terms, that you will continue to help him fulfill his calling as our elected governor, considering always what is best for Guam. Lord, thank you for our beloved Governor, Honorable Eduardo Baza Calvo. Thank you for his family. Thank you for his children for sharing him to us. I pray, Lord, that you will endow him with extraordinary knowledge, strength, and guidance as he makes decisions that will impact the lives of the people of Guam. I pray that in difficult times, remind him to call upon you for wisdom and seek help from above. Most of all, we thank you for every branches of government in Guam for helping his administration succeed in every way. I now ask your blessing upon each and everyone that is represented tonight. May the grace of God, the love of Christ, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with us all. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please be seated. Mr. Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that we rise from this committee of the whole and that we adjourn this session subject to the call of the Speaker.
Hearing no objections, this session then is adjourned, subject to the call of the Speaker.